So who's excited to talk about some operating system upgrades? Yeah? All right. I appreciate it, because usually it's like we're in the room and we'll listen to you talk. I appreciate it either way. So who's this guy? It's me, Mario. My name's Tyler. That is young Tyler. This is like turning into dust. Needs a new headshot, Tyler. I've been a bunch of places. Currently, I'm an SRE at Stack. Mostly focused on running platforms, mucking around with Cube, figuring out how to put just enough bubblegum together to keep the lights on. Like I said, I like tinkering, mostly in Cube. That includes things on Cube, figuring out how to give folks just the things they need so they don't pester me, and just the right things so that I don't need to run around with a fire extinguisher all the time. It's a delicate balance. So what are we here to talk about today? Well, today I'm going to talk a little about the little concoction I've thrown together with Flatcar, Kured, and a little platform interface of our choice. But let me first start with a story, right? What led us here? How many folks here run infrastructure? Some platform, whatever you want to call your service that people get really excited about, right? Whatever it is that you provide, we all have the same curse, right? We got real good at doing what we do. The people are buying what we're selling. But with that success comes the blessing and the curse, right? Users. They got opinions, right? With that success comes that burden of those users. They have needs, and a lot of the times those needs don't align with what we originally planned for, right? Whether it be old legacy systems or maybe brand new baby shiny systems that are still learning. When we do our job of patching things like our systems, well, we had a plan, and that probably doesn't align with some of these users' opinions. And of course, as you continue to run your systems, that problem begins to evolve. Those users, they become sentient, right? They start to know how they need to operate their systems. Those opinions, they become bigger, right? They probably know when they're ready to patch their systems, maybe the timing, the underlying dependencies. How do we solve that problem? How do we continue to keep our sanity, run our systems, but also provide our users with what they need? And that's really what drove this talk a little bit, right? How do we meet people kind of where they're at? Like the good side says, people are always going to be better than computers. The more important, maybe, I don't know, better than computers, we're in a weird time at this point. But to be clear, it's not all that exciting. It all starts with the very boring process and communication. That's right, baby. I'm here to tell you to talk to people. It's important because if you're just sitting here twiddling your thumbs at your desk, putting together a platform, you might run a thing, but if you don't talk to the people who need to use it, you're going to quickly realize that that system you built has this shadow system that lives off to the left of it, and that's really what people are going to be doing, right? No technology can save you if there's not a feedback loop between you and the people using your systems. The only way you move forward is really together. It's not that, it's not that earth shaking, right? Like we all know we need to talk to these people. And I want to be a bit more specific than just talk to people, right? Just talk to people and all your problems will be solved. No, in fact, you're going to talk to people and you're going to find that you have more problems at first, right? You're always going to talk to people and you're going to gather more information that you had before. But really, it can be simple. You don't need to come up with some overly verbose process right away. You can just say like, yo dog, you want to run on my system? Well, this is what you can expect. And then they're going to say, sorry, sucker, that's not work for me. And then it becomes that communication, right? You start to work out like, this is what I intended to happen. Users are going to come back and say like, that doesn't work for me because I've got a dependency here. I've got users of my system. We start layering these, you got a platform, you got a system. These users start building systems on top of your systems. That's how this layer cake works, right? But you start to put all of that together. You quickly find out what doesn't work for them, and then you'll find out, what that baseline kind of agreement starts to be. There's no silver bullet here. But what's worked well for me is just that. Put together those standard baselines and then work from there. It doesn't need to be perfect right out of the gate. It's a loop. You put something together, you see where it falls over, you fix it from there, and you continue on. Really what's important is you want the baseline of your system to work for most of your users. You don't want to have millions of bespoke agreements with every user of your system, because that becomes tedious. That becomes your whole job. And trust me, at the end of the day, almost no one should be thinking about having to when to patch their systems. It should just become another cog in the wheel of how your company is churning out their value, right? At the end of the day, with all these agreements and kind of understandings above, this is how you move forward together. But you don't want to be your team, your platform team, you don't want them to be the ones that always have to press the button. You want to start to provide this self-service, because, like I said, you want to provide that release valve, because when pressure starts to build up in a system, it's going to explode. It's going to explode when you least expect it, in ways you're not thinking about, and almost always right in your face. It's not going to be fun, right? So providing that self-service begins to offload these concerns. It begins to put the decision-making in the hands of people who are where the action's happening. What you want to do is provide the same ways for those actions to happen. Like I said, managing systems is hard, but it doesn't have to be. You want to think of this as just another dependency, right? I promised you self-service, multi-tenant infrastructure, and really that's a deep hole that you can dig into. How far down do you want to go? Whether it's cube clusters, standalone nodes, there's all these underlying systems that people need to build on. Those systems need managed. And everyone expects those systems to be up to date and secure. This is also like a bit of an addendum. Like, I built this talk with hey, let's put decision making in the hands of our users. Yes, that's great. The past 3 weeks has shown me that every Friday for the foreseeable future, we're all going to get hit with these horrible CVEs that just show up, and that's what our Fridays look like. And welcome to the new world, I guess. That's just how that's what our lives are going to turn into. So again, you don't want there to be one point of where all that burden sits. Being able to put this out in the hands of people who are running these systems actually helps you offload that, right? New CVs are dropping daily, most likely on Fridays, because that's when it's going to hurt the most, of course. And we need to be able to provide ways of patching that software quickly. Our systems are just another dependency in our chain, and they need to be treated like that. They're not, just because it's an operating system does not make it special. It's just the thing that everything else gets built on top of, right? And how do we do that? How do we make this boring? Because that's what we all want it to be, boring. Well, instead of this being some magical operating system, we just want to make this deterministic. We want this to be just as deterministic as every other dependency we have. And that is where I fell in love with Flatcar, right? For folks who, I was always a big fan of its precursor, CoreOS. I became even a bigger fan when I started building on top of this. For those unfamiliar, Flatcar is an immutable OS. They provide us some pretty solid assumptions that you can build on top of, right? For each release, you know exactly what's going to be in the box. There is no package manager that someone's going to log into your system overnight and be like, I just need to bump this one package. And then you suddenly have this mystery kind of snowflake system that's running over here while you think it actually matches everything else over here, right? You can't change the packages, right? Well, I'll show you that here in a second. You know what you have at any point in time. When it's time to upgrade, you know what's in that upgrade. You roll it forward. The upgrades themselves are atomic, right? So I pull it down, I reboot the machine, it's on the new version. Oh no, it broke. Cool, roll it back. I know exactly what I'm going back to. I know exactly what's going to come up, and we're back in good shape. Or at least we're back in the shape that we were in. Whether that was a good shape or a bad shape, that's probably scenario specific, right? But speaking of those upgrades, that's actually one of my favorite things about Flatcar is how you're able to manage the upgrades. By default, you spin up a Flatcar system, and it's probably pulling and subscribed to these upstream channels, right? So it's pulling from Flatcar. It's saying, hey, I'm on this version. I'm on the stable channel. So anytime there's a release to the stable channel, it's pulling those upgrades over the air. New one's available. It lets you know and it says, hey, it's time to reboot, upgrade time, right? But at the same time, that's probably fine for a handful of systems. And if all of you are in a place where you can just rely on like, hey, someone upstream told me it's stable, so I trust it, I love that for you. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But a lot of us probably work in more opinionated environments where no, we want to be at least one version behind because for some reason that's what we've all decided what we can trust. We don't want to be on brand new shiny. We want to be kind of shiny, a little bit shiny, a little sparkle, right? And maybe we have lower environments where we're like, absolutely, yeet, whatever's in alpha, let's ride, right? But you are deciding how you're kind of bin packing your machines. Hey, these 3 machines are over here, they're our dev environment. Hey, these 6 machines are over here. That is our pre-prod environment. And then everybody else, default, production, right? With Flatcar, like I said, by default, probably subscribe to the upstream, but they also provide a nice system called Nebraska. That is where you can define these different groups. Flatcar allows you with just as configuration as part of Ignition, you can say, hey, as I'm creating these nodes, it's going to be like, here's the name of it. So whenever it's reporting in, I know who is who. Here's the group it should be in. You can have the logic in there that says like, hey, unless there's something super shiny special and it's like when it pixies, it gets this ignition file. Everything else just defaults to this. So there's kind of templated values out like that. And you can say, hey, when you're checking in for your updates, don't default and go upstream. Go over here to my special shiny Nebraska instance. That's where you're going to get all your information once you connect. Like I said, at that point, you're rolling systems, you're rolling system updates out, just like your other dependencies, right? Just like you have something in GitHub that's probably bumping dependencies. Hey, new version's ready. Here's some rolls, go forward. Now we have the same thing with our operating systems. But that's just the first part. We have Flatcar that says, cool, I have software available. Nebraska says, here it is for you. Nebraska pulls it down. But there's part 2, right? Grabbing the software and having it ready is just the first part. We need something, like I said, there's once the update's been pulled down, it creates a Sentinel file that just says like, hey, I'm ready to be rebooted, right? And then what? We don't just need to pull it down, we need to apply it, right? That apply needs a reboot. This is where, wait for it, we finally have the cure. Duh. Yeah, embrace the pun. I built this whole talk around that. Just let it sink in, all right? Yes, we finally have the cure for our reboot woes. In general, everyone's afraid to automate the reboot. Why? Because is it going to reboot at the right time? Are all the machines going to suddenly reboot at the same time? I only want the reboot to happen there. How do I not let it happen everywhere, right? And that's exactly where Kured comes into play. Kured, for those unfamiliar, it just runs as a daemon set. So if you're running on Kube, it's just a daemon set. What it does is it looks for that Sentinel file on your nodes. It sees them, and then it says, cool, I'm ready for a reboot. And a lot of you are probably thinking, cool, bud, I've got a bash script that does that. I don't need your fancy daemon set. And let me be clear, it doesn't just handle the reboot. It makes sure that it reboots under those right circumstances. You get to define like, hey, I only want it to reboot during business hours, so I can put these peepers on it, right? I want it to happen only on maybe Thursday or Fridays. I don't want it to happen every day of the week, just Thursday and Fridays. Not Thursdays, Fridays, it's a terrible example. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, middle of the week when people are actually around and not taking off on Fridays. So you can put these conditions around it, and Kured allows you to do that. and I see like some furrowed brows, right? Like we got some software, it knows how to reboot, and like that also sounded like a bash script on a cron schedule. You're getting there, but wait, I'm not done yet. Let me keep cooking, all right? In addition to this, I'm back. All right, in addition to that, it also hooks up with the rest of the Cube ecosystem, right? So it can tie into Prometheus, and now not only is it going to reboot just when you want it to and knows how to reboot, it's going to say like, hey, your cluster is on fire. I'm not going to let you pour more gasoline on that fire. Because if something's already broken and then you reboot it to a new version, new kernel, it's going to get worse. And you might not be able to fix it at that point. So what it does is Kured says, hey, are there any firing alerts? If there are, I'm not doing anything. Go fix it. And then you, like me, can sit there while you're watching it for 30 minutes and be like, what's happening? Why isn't it doing the thing? And then you check Prometheus, you're like, oh, thanks, smart computer. I didn't make this worse. Because sometimes you want to go in and be like, all right, if you're not going to do it, I'll press the button, reboot, and then you lose a Friday, right? It's like I said, it's great. It saves a lot of time. And again, as you start to tie all these things together, you're starting to get these deterministic systems that are keeping themselves up to date per your configuration, right? And at that point, again, we stop treating system software like it's anything special. It's just another dependency. We now have a way of pulling the necessary software. We have a way of applying the necessary software. It's great. We're now managing it just like everything else. But let's think back to the beginning of that conversation. What did we say was the burden and the benefit that gives us all jobs, but also the burden? It's our users, right? Cool, man. You can set all this stuff up, but what about my special needs, right? Those pesky users. In an ideal world, again, everything works exactly as we hope it would. We can reboot machines all the time, just like we want, and no one would ever have a special opinion about that. Yet here we live in the real world where opinions are everywhere. And this is really where the idea of this whole self-service occurred to me, because as much as I want to give folks access to Nebraska and just let them go nuts with machines that are in their groups, there's a problem with Nebraska. Nebraska has two modes. You either get no keys in your read, or you get all the keys in your admin. And I know you want to be like, it's cool, I trust everybody. What could possibly go wrong? Until something's on fire at 3 in the morning. And all it takes is one set of foggy eyes to be like, yeah, reboot. And then someone else's machines start rebooting to a version that isn't supported for their software and they weren't expecting. And then someone else's pager's going off. There's no better way to start wars between teams than to just start firing off unexpected pages 3 in the morning on a Saturday. It's gonna take some healing to fix that, right? But luckily for us, Nebraska provides an API. And maybe unluckily for everybody else, I've never met an API that I haven't been able to wrap in enough bubblegum to make it do the things that I want. So what happens next we call the portal to Flatcar Nirvana, right? What does that mean? I think you know that means I'm about to get up to no good, right? I'm gonna wrap this in all the bubblegum I can to make it do the thing I want. You see, these days, just regardless of where you're at and regardless in what shape it takes, there's a portal somewhere in your organization, whether it's some custom nonsense you're throwing together, whether it's purpose-built software like Backstage, or maybe Headlamp. I know that's another UI folks are kind of defaulting to with Cube. Whatever it is, there's a portal somewhere, whether you know about it or not, that everyone's referring to as the goal. Like that's where they're building a thing they call the golden path. We don't want anyone to think about anything. Just press these buttons, and it'll make everything all right. You might think to yourself, this sounds like you're about to start talking a whole lot of trash. And maybe in my head I am, but no, I'm not, right? I describe it like this because this portal can come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Some teams might build a whole bunch of that custom code. Others might kind of just extend what already exists. And I actually built like 3 of them for this talk because I was like, ooh, shiny, yes, this looks fun, and then I'll do another one, right? So like any good engineer, I saw something shiny and I wanted to play with it. So I went out and built something for it. I told you, I like to tinker, and lately I've been working with Backstage a whole bunch, so I figured, why not build a plugin that lets me control Nebraska from Backstage? I'm already trying to make this the center of gravity. Why point people to another UI? I'm just gonna bring it on in, right? And honestly, why did I do this? Because a lot of the time I'm getting yelled at about how people hate reading YAML. And the other part of the time, I'm finding out that, allegedly people don't like working in their terminal. Blasphemy, I know. I think I'm with my people in this room, but not everyone loves it, right? But I get it, we all like pretty things. Backstage solves all of the problems I described above. And now, instead of having to deal directly with all the YAML or a bunch of text in our terminal, you have a beautiful UI. In addition, it's a UI, whether it's beautiful, opinionated, I know. But the benefit here also is that you get to take advantage of its built-in Auerbeck, its authentication, right? You're logging in just like you would to any other system in your environment. It knows what groups you're in, and we can kind of build on top of that, right? So, like, as I mentioned, especially nice about Backstage is its extensibility, which I always stumble over. It's nice because you can extend it to do anything you want. I will forgive the Backstage creators, maintainers, in the fact that I have to now understand some TypeScript and React. But once you get over that hurdle, it's pretty great. You can extend it to do pretty much anything you want. You got an API to work with, you can go ahead and extend that. Build that on top of the fact that at some point you're probably already working with Backstage, and you can kind of, again, continue being that center of gravity. But right now you might be asking yourself, that sounds great, but it just sounds like you're moving your problem to some other place. Nebraska only has read and admin. It just sounds like you're going to make it read and admin in Backstage. That doesn't solve the problem, right? And you're right, we can build a beautiful UI, centralize our problem, but it's still a problem. But the beautiful thing about the CNCF landscape is that you have endless distractions, possibilities, endless possibilities, right? There are solutions for just about everything. And the one that I love to abuse the most is Open Policy Agent, right? Whenever there's something that won't necessarily bend to my will, I say, cool, I will take this, move it over here, and then I will jam Open Policy Agent and some Rego right in the middle of it and say, like, cool, now before you go do a thing, start making some decisions for me, and if it's allowed, continue on. If not, tell them to kick rocks, right? So in our case, what I did is I just defined some roles. I said, hey, for these groups, let them manage these channels. So I was able to do that. I was able to put that as part of my Backstage configuration. And now when someone logs into Backstage, now we can start saying, hey, you can see all this data just like you normally would. But now if you're in the right identity groups, you can start making some additional decisions. You can start taking some additional actions where you wouldn't normally see that in Nebraska. Is it perfect? Of course not. The right thing to do is to go upstream, create an issue, say, hey, it would be cool to do this, and start working with the maintainers, right? The problem is that takes a lot of time, which at this point I did not have. I had a problem, and I saw a bunch of bits that I could tie together and make it work, right? Just like we all do. But I think we've all had enough of my talking. And I think it's probably about time we start showing this off a little bit. So the first thing I want to show off here is, I've lost my terminal, so I will just get out of this for a second. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into a Flatcar system. Come on, don't do this to me now. QCTL.
You didn't
didn't. Oh. Pretty please? Yeah. Magic words. All right, so I've got Flatcar running in KubeVirt because I wanted to keep everything here local because conference Wi-Fi, y'all. So the first thing I mentioned is it's great because as part of my ignition file, I can say, hey, you belong to this, go talk here, right? So we can see it's part of my configuration. It knows its name. It knows what group it's going to report in as, and it knows who to go talk to. I've got my Nebraska running in the cluster, so I just say, hey, go talk to the cluster FQDN, right? The other benefit of Flatcar, as I told you, is let's just go to like bin, right? I can say like, hey, I want to create something, and it's going to say, no, go away, read-only file system, don't touch. And then you're going to say, but like, hey man, I'm root, I can do whatever I want. And I can say like, remove, what do we got over here? zgrep. And it's going to say, hey, I don't care, what? Oh, because I didn't go there. Remove zgrep, and it's going to say, hey, I don't care who you are, immutable, read-only, go away, right? So again, those versions, the software that's on there, it will remain there. That's not to say that you can't add things. You can create your own, like you can create an image pipeline and extend Flatcar. You can put things like in /opt, right? Touch, test, right? And then we can see it there. But the core of your system remains the core of your system at all times. So that is Flatcar, right? I don't think we have a reboot file yet. Okay. So Flatcar, immutable, beautiful, right? So we're going to go back up here now to Nebraska. I'm going to log in as one of my read-only users. So we can see we've got Nebraska. It says, hey, I've got software Flatcar Container Linux. I can see that I've got two groups, right? We saw demo A, demo B. We can see that they are reporting in. One's in a stable channel, one's on an alpha channel, right? I'm logged in as user Alice right now, who is a read-only user. It can, that's not what I want to do. I can go here. You're going to see I've got an edit button. You're going to be like, hey man, you just edit here. Cool. So I'm going to just say beta ARM64, and you're going to see click save. And while it looks like this user can make some changes, when I go to save them, it says, no, you're read-only, go away. Could that be better? Yes. Again, issues and solutions, right? I have the ability to go create a PR to solve this problem. But right now I do not have the permissions to do the thing I want. So what I did, let's go back to my terminal here, get back to where I was. Whole way out. Backstage. Backstage is controlled by like an app config, just YAML file. And you can see that I'm controlling all of my Rego nonsense through here. So you can see, hey, Nebraska Team A, you can manage these groups. Nebraska Team B, you can manage these groups. Alice, as you can imagine, is part of Group A, so she can manage Demo A. So if I go back here to Backstage, we can see that I need to log in. And once I'm logged in, we can see that I've got a nice shiny plugin here over on the side for Nebraska. We can see that just like my Nebraska UI, I can see what applications, groups, channels there are. I can see what applications exist. I see I've got my two groups. You can see as part of demo B, I have no buttons, but now as part of Nebraska, or as part of Backstage, I do have some buttons for A, right? So if we go back, because I forget what it is, we can see that it's disabled right now, right? But as Alice, I can come in here to demo A and I can say updates enabled, save, and then if I come back here, refresh, we can see now Alice has the ability to enable things, right? I can switch what versions. Now I can say, hey, Alice, Group A, go nuts on demo A, right? Bob, demo in group B, go nuts on B. And then I can be like, Tyler, you're amazing, you're the best. You go touch anything you want because you're in the admin group, right? So we still can take advantage of the features that exist in Nebraska, but we extend them by putting them in Backstage for non-admin users to manage it. And let's get back here. Like I said, is this perfect? Probably not. Like I said, what we want is we want this to be in the supported path. We want this to be part of the application itself. But as we are all kind of living in this world of like where we're building these developer platforms, we're using things like Backstage, why not extend it where we can while we're waiting on fixes from upstream, right? Are there going to be sharp edges? Of course there are going to be sharp edges. But there's going to be sharp edges with everything. So hopefully this is useful. I think like I said, we could upstream this, right? We could go open that PR. What would be useful is if I had a room full of people who came to see someone talk about something like this to show that there is interest in it. So hey, maybe we can use this. We can open the PR and be like, hey, we talked about it. I think we got the people moving. What do you think, right? Because the last thing you want to do is open up a feature for one person. You don't want to ever support all these endless features just for one thing. But if this can become generally useful for folks, maybe we can continue extending this. I'll still be around for a bit after this. If I don't catch you and you want to talk more about it, find me at all these places. I'm on the CNCF Slack, Cube Slack. I'm everywhere, baby. So come find me. We'll talk more about it. But thanks everybody for the time.